Welcome to Alchemical Science. I'm Jordan Collin, an independent researcher, an alchemist, and a student of the inventor and vortex fusion specialist Malcolm Bendall. Today, for the next part in our Alpha and Omega Ladder series of interviews, lectures, and announcements, I am catching up with a team of two independent replicators of the Thunderstorm Generator from Northern Rivers in New South Wales in Australia. Saxon Van Bentley, a farmer and a regenerative agriculturist, who saw the potential in the Thunderstorm Generator to solve a number of global issues and wanted to see if it worked for himself. And his partner on the build, Gary Ryan, an experienced boilermaker and welder, who's an avid experimenter, who, typical to the Northern Rivers crowd, you have to visit there to know what I mean here, they're a very special bunch of people. Gary couldn't help but get exposed to all the weird over-unity stuff that you can inevitably get exposed to if you look just a little beyond the veil and look into the backyard garages of the bush mechanic, where nearly everyone has seen an engine run cold, or a circuit produce more voltage and current than you're feeding into it, or a machine that can control the weather. Just in case you ever accidentally do make one of those, by the way, and it starts to scare the shit out of you, apparently you can deactivate it and stop the storm clouds rolling in by submerging it in a body of water. Just a tip I heard in case you ever need it. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Here are a couple quick announcements, and then we will dive straight into the interview, and you can hear it all from Saxon and Gary themselves. Remember that you will find a lot of other resources in the description, including the link to my own website, as well as strikefoundation.earth, where you will find Malcolm Bendall's Alpha and Omega Ladder, the plasmoid unification model, and other notes and lectures which you can print or download. And also links to order copies of Roland Perry's new book, Oliphant, the history of one of Australia's greatest scientists involved in the evolution of cold fusion, and also one of Roland's previous books, The Shaman, the novel based on Malcolm Bendall's life. And all of that is there in the description to check out after this video. Now enjoy this interview. Thanks once again to Saxon Van Bentley and Gary Ryan for taking the time to share their experiences. All right, welcome to Alchemical Science. I am here today with Saxon Van Bentley and Gary Ryan, who are independent replicators of the Thunderstorm Generator and experimenters in their own right, who are from Northern Rivers in New South Wales, Australia. So welcome, guys. Thanks for coming on to talk today.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Yep, thanks for having us.
So just wanted to first touch on how you guys got interested in the Thunderstorm Generator and went about going into your build. But first of all, you've both got an experimenter's background and came to this from different perspectives. First of all, Saxon, how did you find out about the Thunderstorm Generator and first go, hey, let's go and build one of these things?
Well, my interest originally came from, I was and still am a big fan of Randall Carlson, who is very well known in a lot of different spaces with his sacred geometry and his commentary on ancient technology and culture and all that sort of stuff. So I was a big fan of him, and I was watching him on a few different podcasts, namely the Sean Ryan podcast that came up, and he started talking about, plasma technology, and I thought, oh wow, this sounds really interesting. I don't think Randall would make superfluous comments of that magnitude, so I thought, wow, there must be something here. And then of course he mentioned you in that podcast, and then I thought, oh well, I've got to check this guy out, and then punched it in, Alchemical Science, up you pop, and then I just started watching all your videos, and I thought, struth, oh, this is amazing. So, and then what really got me and that really piqued my interest was that it was open source for anyone who wanted to make it themselves and to prove or disprove either which way. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. There must be a lot of confidence behind it if it's going to be open source in that way. So I thought, well, I got this feeling in me. I thought, well, I think this is pretty important. I better go put my money where my mouth is and go and do it. So I thought, yep, I'm going to go do it. And I looked at all the build it yourself guides, and I realized that I didn't have all the skills necessary to make it happen, but I did have some. And most notably, I didn't have too good welding skills. So, I can weld a gate and a trailer and do agricultural welding, but certainly nothing precision. So I thought, well, who do I know? And Gary came to mind. I gave Gary a call. I said, Gary, I need your help. He says, what are we doing? And I said, well, do you want to make something called a Thunderstorm Generator? And he said, yeah, okay. And then he got back to me, I think about a week later, wasn't it, Gary? And you said, is this what we're doing? And he showed me the Thunderstorm Generator. I said, yeah, that's the one. So that's how it sort of started, and it just kind of spiraled from there. We started doing the build and started collecting all the bits and pieces. So like I focused mostly on the bubbler and the ionizer, because that was pretty easy. You can get most of the stuff from any sort of hardware shop and
the plumbing jobs, which farmers know well. Yeah,
exactly. And that was really what I really wanted to do. Is I wanted to put one on the tractor. Still don't have one on the tractor. We'll get there, but that was the original thing. I thought, if we can clean this, because I was involved in, I still am involved in the carbon credit space for soil carbon and sequestering soil carbon with regenerative agriculture. So I had a lot of nature-based backing. So, and I thought, if this is real, this is probably the most amazing thing for the planet. We can start cleaning it up. So, and that was my thing. I wanted to help the planet. So that was really the driving force for me.
Yeah, and we will chat about some of those implications and for farming as well, because I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because that's obviously my background as well, and how I got interested in it. So we've got some similar backgrounds as well with Randall and everything else. But I wanted to ask first about, Gary, your experience coming into it, because you're a professional boilermaker and welder, right? And these are, in my opinion, the modern day alchemists, working with metals and understanding their properties and now building Vajras. So yeah, how did you, obviously Saxon told you about it, but how did you kind of come into this? And we'll talk a little bit more about the technicalities of the build and everything first, but just a bit about your background and the Northern Rivers community and, everything going on there with the experimenters.
I don't know, my background, born and raised on the Northern Rivers. I completed an apprenticeship with a local company here building magnetic mineral separators as a boilermaker welder. Covered sheet metal work, stainless steel, aluminium, heavy to heavy metal work. I've travelled around the east coast of Australia a little bit, building sheds, boats, all sorts. Pretty much covered every aspect of industry, except for what Michael Acris is doing, these high-tech monols and titaniums down there. Haven't done much of that. But probably about 20 years ago, I was working with a local company, and one of the workers there introduced me to the Joe cell.
Yeah.
And that started my path down the alternative energy route, shall we say.
You have that in common with Michael Acris, who also, that was one of his big inspirations, and he's also replicated that. So yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
His work's very interesting.
I've tried. I've made a couple of the water chargers that he makes. The actual cell I made didn't work. I had something wrong there, but it's pretty scary, the Joe cell. There's a lot to it, a lot to understand. Yeah. But I went down that route, and then because we were working with water, I started to study Victor Schauberger and all of his writings. His theories on water are brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've gone from there, from water down to magnetic resonance, John Bedini's pulse motors, which I was preparing to build a pulse motor when Saxon contacted me and introduced me to the Thunderstorm Generator. But I had heard of that, so I did a bit of research, and yeah, we've jumped down that rabbit hole. It's been great. I've loved it.
Yeah, no, absolutely amazing. And I guess this brings us to the build itself. And obviously you guys did your own build, and then we'll talk a little bit later about when we came and invaded your workshop for a week or two and worked on some more builds. But yeah, you guys put together your own. Gary made the Vajra and did the welding, and Saxon put together the rest of the unit, the ionizer and the bubbler. How did you guys go about that process, and what kind of, I guess, complications did you encounter? Because you were going off very little information at the time. I'd only released my first build guide maybe, and I think a few updates after that, maybe just in time before your build. But yeah, how did you guys go about the build, and what kind of issues did you encounter putting it together? Or I guess specifics did you follow, like sourcing the right parts and the inner diameter, outer diameter, this type of thing?
Saxon sourced all of the parts. He imported the spheres from America somewhere. I'm not sure what website, Saxon, but he imported all the parts, dropped them off to me with what's left of Nikita's plan.
Yep.
And I worked off that plan. I had to go back and watch quite a few of your videos, Jordan, to find the stubby dimensions on the stubby, the smaller version, which is the one we made.
Yep.
And I concentrated on that probably took me a month to get it all sorted out and figure out how to build it, what order to make it in.
Yeah, the welding order,
you're
right?
in trouble.
That's something you commented on in our second edition of the build guide, that you do have to think a little bit about in what order you weld it all together. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into trouble.
Do you ever? Yes. You've actually kind of pre-assemble it, leave the outer spheres loose so that you can weld the inner join and then weld the rest of it together.
Yeah, easy to do with a big machine, hard to do, by hand when you're doing it yourself in the workshop.
Yes, Michael's using CNC machinery and he's going to be absolutely spot on. I'm using a drill press. Drill press and a hammer and a hole saw.
Yeah, ultimately that's going to be the part that it's just going to be a whole lot easier to buy once the mass production units are widely available, and the new designs are, there's been a lot of testing done on the durability of the unit and all of those kind of little engineering things. So it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to just buy one, and then even if you're an experimenter and you want to put one together, just bang it on the unit, because that is definitely the most complicated process. But it's great that we've had this period where they haven't really been available, so it's driven some independent replicators to put them together themselves, which for the science is really important, because it just shows that it can be done. We never met before. You guys had never met Malcolm. You didn't have a direct source on the information. You kind of dug this up yourselves, put it together, and then turned up to an event and said, "Hey, look, I made one. Can we test it?" So yeah, what about? Yeah, it was. So what about you, Saxon? Same kind of thing, sourcing the information and putting the unit together. Do you have any advice for people putting it together, or just things you'd like to talk about in your experience of the build?
Yeah, so there was a few challenges early on because the build guide wasn't all in one spot. We had to look at your the one on just the bubbler and the ionizer and look at that one and sort of pause the video and zoom in and what part did he use here and how did he put it together, and it was really
no engineering diagrams.
no engineering diagrams, no, but just zooming in on different things. And then I think you had a Dropbox with some of the photos you took, and then we zoomed right in there. Is that a 3-inch or is that a 4-inch, and how does this work? And but it was really fun sort of trying to back engineer the whole thing off what we were seeing. And then of course there was Nikita's build guide, and then in that guide there was, you can get the hemispheres here, and then it was I think it was Sharp Products that got them. They were the blokes over in the States that they had the 3 mil thick ones, because you'd go on your old cheapo websites and you'd find them and they'd be like 0.6 of a millimeter and stuff like that. And I just thought, there's probably something to the thickness of it. So I'll just lash out and get some of these good ones from the States. And ultimately, I think if you're going to do it, buy quality materials. Don't try to cheap out and get the cheap ones. If you're going to do it, buy the proper ones. And if you're going to weld your own one, get the 3 mil thick stuff, get the proper stuff, and it's a lot easier that way. And it's a better result, I think, personally. But yeah, so that was sort of the challenge, and also just trying to find all the little bits and pieces. There's various places you got to go, but ultimately, I think we can just get them all in your local town here. Now that I know where everything is, I can basically get it all in a day, bar the acrylic pipe, which you got to get from offline, but it's not that hard and not that expensive. So all in all, it was really fun, because I'm not much of a technology guy. I'm not really much of a tinkerer, but I am now. It's sort of started that in me. So I've now started
initiation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was initiated into it. I was a Luddite for too long, and now I'm being thrown into the realms of technology. So that part was particularly fun for me, and it was that was within the realms of my ability, and I'm eternally grateful for Gary and his experience and ability. Without you, Gary, I couldn't have done it.
You're welcome. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun because the funny thing was, like, we talked a few times, we knew each other, but we didn't really know each other that well. And I thought the best thing I got out of it was your friendship, and I thought that was fantastic. I mean, that was like, we got really close over the days in the workshop trying to figure it out, and me bringing the laptop in and going, oh, what's this bit? What do you think about here? Or should we do 2 inches here or 3 inches here? And then sort of that was fun. It was it was a really great experience. So yeah, all in all, it was fantastic. And now I'm going down all these different rabbit holes, and it's sort of, for me, it also goes to show that a lot of the stuff that I had been looking into in terms of esotericism, religions, ancient religions, traveling around and living with different spiritual groups, that there was this sort of perennial philosophy, this underlying current. And there's definitely something here, and I'm still looking for more evidence, but there seems to be something there. So yeah, that's sort of what I got from the build, and it was fantastic. But yeah, like I say, if you're going to attempt it yourself, buy quality products. Don't cheap out, get the good stuff, and if you buy quality, you'll have a quality system at the end. And if you are thinking about doing it, please do. It's fun. Find a friend to do it with, and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. You guys made a great team on this because you both have your attention to detail in your own respective areas. And you can see, because you produced a great unit. And of course, when I came up to Lismore to do the demo, you guys turned up. We actually didn't have a working engine that night. We had some issues with the Vajra and the vacuum on the engine. You guys turned up. You had a working Thunderstorm generator there. Pulled it out at the end, started this thing up, and we're all hanging around it. All the audience who was still left there just going, hey, damn, this thing works. And we had no idea what was going to turn up there. So, what happened there, You just thought, oh, let's go along and, we'll see if we can get it tested. And we didn't have the gas analyzer that night, but of course we did catch up with you guys over the next few days and, of course, test your unit, and we were getting pristine alpine meadow air, as George Lush likes to say.
Yeah. Now that was really fun, because I remember calling Gary the day that you put out the video saying, we're going to be in Mullumbimby or Byron to do the show, and I called up and said, Gary. He said, yeah. I said, guess what? I said, Jordan's coming around to do a live show, and he's like, oh, really? Yeah. And I said, guess where it is? He says, where? I said, it's in Byron Bay. He says, oh, bloody hell, we're only just down in Lismore, so we're not even half an hour from there. So that kind of put the fire up under us.
Oh, yeah, the first one was in Byron. That's right, yeah, in Mullumbimby. Yeah, not Lismore. Yeah. The second one was in Lismore.
Yep.
Well, we did demo you guys, your engine, and did have the gas analyzer on.
Yeah, that's right. And but because we hadn't finished it by the time you announced, so we'd still had a few things we had to do, but we hadn't ever turned it on. So it kind of ignited a fire beneath us, and we thought, right, well, we've got to get it done before then, because let's take it along, because we wanted to show it we'd done, and we were even thinking there were a few other people that might have shown up with their own, but no, we were the only ones.
Yeah, and it has happened in other demos before. At Cosmic Summit, there was a couple guys that rocked up with their own demos in their trailers, and then another guy did this year again as well, which I found great. And yeah, some other conferences as well. There's definitely a few people with independent retrofits around out there, but I feel like you guys were one of the first, aside from Sam and Eli in the States, who are also Aussies, but over in the States, that came out and showed your invention to the public. So, and it was, one of the first ones that was getting really optimal results. And I really do think that was in your attention to detail on the unit and the Vajra, and getting the right spec parts, as you say. 3 mil minimum on the spheres is ideal. You can do it a little bit less, like 2.5. That's okay, but if you want it to last and make it easier to weld, I guess, you want a certain minimum thickness, and also to be able to press out those transitions, right?
Yeah, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but the one of Ben's that I made for him is only 1.6.
Yeah, so that's the one that we demoed on the channel with Ben last week.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you can certainly do it, but we did see some impact marks kind of on the outside of that at the end. So I think, particularly if you're running the thing hard, which of course we were doing some, experiments that you're not supposed to do at home, but it's going to probably wear out a lot faster. So best to use thicker parts.
Yeah, I made one myself out of 1.6 mil, and it fell apart after about probably 6 hours running. It started
Okay,
to
yeah.
crack, re-welded it, and it cracked again. And I've pulled it apart since and found the issue. It's just too thin.
Yeah, that's ultimately it, right? Maybe like some kind of very advanced annealing could solve this, but I doubt it. It's
Possibly.
just the material's just not thick enough, and it wouldn't be worth it, right? Like just buy some thicker steel and just keep annealing it.
Right.
That's going to be the way
Yep.
to go.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then we had this second demo in Lismore because the first one was, a little disappointing that we didn't get a good result. We didn't get a result at all from our engine, and then we weren't able to analyze yours. So we came back up and we did another demo at the Masonic Temple, which Saxon arranged from his, I guess, the reference to his esoteric interest in this technology and, Pathway In, Randall Carlson, and all of this. And yeah, we had plasmoids dancing in the sky that night. If you guys remember, it was quite a wild storm, which is a little frightening in Northern Rivers in a way, but it was cool.
We're used to it up here.
Yeah, it was a rather auspicious evening. A lot of things lined up quite well in order to make it happen. You're right, Jordan. I am a mason. I'm a mason here in Lismore, Northern Rivers Lodge number 77. And that's how I also came to it, because Randall obviously is a brother mason, and he talks about a lot of that sort of esoteric stuff, which is very interesting. And it was great. I mean, I just gave the lodge secretary a call. I said, mate, can we borrow the temple? We want to do a showing. And he said, yeah, sure, no worries. And gave me the keys, and then off we were. And I thought that was a rather suitable venue for such a piece of technology. And I thought it gave a quite a nice air aesthetically to what we were doing. And I thought the thunderstorm in the background was the support we needed, and that was fantastic. It really gave a nice air to the whole thing, and ultimately it was a fantastic evening, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought everyone who came along enjoyed it as well. And I liked how we had different levels of generators. We had the control, and then we had the sort of not so good one, or one that wasn't quite
the vacuum leak one that still did something. Yep. And then we had your replication, which was running perfectly. And really grateful to the Masonic Temple for hosting it on that evening. And it was a really good demo. A lot of people showed up and were able to see the technology in action. And it does, this is all about ancient history and about these kind of more esoteric roots of the technology. The 4 to 3 to 2 spheres and all of this is no coincidence. And we've all heard Randall talk about it a lot. And that's certainly one of my primary interests in the technology as well, is these numbers that come up a lot in a lot of the secret societies and the Masonic and scriptures and all of these kind of worldwide, more esoteric histories. They come up again and again and again. This is where a lot of the maths comes from, a lot of the sacred geometry that's employed in the design of the Thunderstorm Generator and the Vajra. So I think ultimately there's a lot of people that are primed to really be able to adapt to this technology and maybe even do their own work in that field of understanding that it's sacred geometry and numbers that are the language of what we're doing here. It's not normal engineering.
No, we're just playing and experimenting with magnetic resonance generators, like pulsing a transformer. It all comes down to your frequencies and your resonance inside the coils even. That's why I can relate what I know to the Thunderstorm Generator.
Yeah, another resonance phenomenon. Because let's talk about that for a moment, if you don't mind. Like, what are some of the other experiments that you've done aside from the Joe cell and obviously your work on the Thunderstorm Generator? What's kind of been some of the influences and some of the experiments you've done yourself that have helped you understand this resonance magnetic phenomena?
I watch another YouTube channel called it's Rick Friedrich. He's a YouTuber. He explains a lot of Don Smith's magnetic resonance generators. So I was also preparing to make one of those just before Saxon contacted me. So I've done a lot of that. Rick Friedrich, I've got the book here. It's absolutely massive book from America. But the information in that is just phenomenal. But it talks about resonance. He works at radio frequencies, which is right up megahertz. But it's all about having the right coil ratios from one coil to the other coil, the large coil, same as a Tesla coil. You need a certain amount of turns, pulse that with a certain frequency. Yeah, Don Smith, one of the big ones. Is it John Bearden? Built and patented the MEG, motionless electromagnetic generator.
Was that Tom Bearden, or is it
Tom Bearden? That's the one. Sorry, yes, Tom Bearden. Yeah, he built and patented the MEG, motionless generator. It's just a transformer that's wound with 2 coils, sometimes 3. Pulse one, and you get energy out the other one if it's built with the right frequencies, the right number of turns, that sort of thing. So that's the one I was kind of looking at, Don Smith, more than anything else.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
John Bedeen, he's got so many things out there. His videos, he's at Davey Oneness, another YouTuber, has got all of John Bedeen's videos up on there. A wealth of information.
Yeah, fantastic. No, a lot of really good experimenters that you just mentioned then that people can go and check out.
Well, I started with simple little jewel thief, it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Simple little circuit. I started with that, and hey, it worked. I had 2 dead 12-volt batteries, both at 5 or 6 volts. Connected the 2 together, and this 5-volt one charged the 12-volt one, going through a jewel thief. But wow, I'm in. I was hooked.
It just shows you in a simple way, right, that you can do things that you're not really supposed to be able to do.
Yes, I have made a lot of experiments that haven't worked. A lot of the magnets, you see people wrapping coils around magnets on YouTube. A lot of them failed. I couldn't get them to work.
Yeah, we almost need to do a Mythbusters, right? Like, there's so many new free energy technology, and it really does detract from things that we do know work. So, did you ever play around with the Rodin coils or toroidal coils at all?
I have not. I need to study them more.
Yeah, I'll bring you down a couple of mine. And next time, or up next time I'm up that way, because they are fun and they do some very interesting things. And if I was a better electrical engineer, I think I could have done some even more interesting things than I did with them, which were already pretty interesting. I'll cut in a couple of photos of the ones that we did when I post this interview. But really interesting stuff. Yeah, a lot of people
making one, just haven't got there yet.
Yeah,
I got sidetracked with Thunderstorm generators.
Yeah, haven't we all, eh? It's a good sidetrack, though.
I've built 5 now.
Yeah. 5. You're officially a Thunderstorm generator mechanic at this point.
Oh, I'm getting there. I've got it figured out now. Oh, I think some of it.
Well, you produced working units, so you can't say much more than that, can you?
Nowhere near Malcolm's ability.
No, well, he's one of those wizards, really. He definitely works on it very intuitively.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an incredible invention, when you just think about the fact of, it's not just, okay, here's a new system or something we made out of coils. It's saying, here's a problem we have, the combustion engine, and we got millions of them, if not billions of them in the world. Must be billions, I guess. So what do we do? It's got this pulsing vacuum and it's got this exhaust output of shockwave heat. What do you do with that? And it's very clever to think of a way to harness that energy and put it back into the engine and get rid of it. And that's why I'm a big fan of this technology. I've become such an advocate for it.
Definitely. There's nothing else like.
Yeah. So what's for the future, guys? Because I know that you've been kind of continuously working on it. You're building another Thunderstorm generator now. You've been going and showing some people the technology, Saxon, and I don't know, maybe Gary, if you've been involved in that as well, but I certainly know, Saxon, you've been driving around with that thing in the back of your ute a few times. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that? And you don't have to be anything specific. I know there's some kind of in the works things going on there, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's been great doing the showings. Obviously, the first one that we did was in Lismore, and then I believe we went down to Sydney to do another one. I remember putting it on the back of the ute and going down to Sydney to do a bit of a showing there, and then I think one of the other team called up and said, "Oh, we're going to go down and do a self-reliance festival down in Victoria. Can we borrow it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, no worries." So got taken halfway across the continent again and did a showing down there. And then we had Primex up here in Casino, and I put that one together, and we had a few of the fellas come up, and we all, Ben was there and Jack was there, and everyone sort of, Gary was there as well, and we showed a few local academics who were very, very keen to see some more, and who were very interested and were looking with skeptical but very attentive faces at our showing.
That's good.
And the man I brought over, he almost didn't want to believe it, but he was looking in a very looked back down at the generator, and then up at the numbers, and then back down at the generator. He said, "I will be back." And then he brought a whole bunch of his mates down, and then they all stood around and all looked at it. So that's actually in the works at the moment. That's a bit of a future thing I'll keep under my helmet at the moment, but watch this space. There is something coming from that. I'm glad to report. But yeah, so there seems to be a bit more institutional recognition, and I think as the groundswell continues to grow, there's going to be more and more, and it's going to be like a snowball running down a hill. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. It's
absolutely,
yeah.
They're flying around the country now, and we're about to have these other 10 units ready that Acris Industries is doing up, and they'll go around for demos for university study, and then we've got the independent replications that are going around as well. And this has been a real community effort to try and get the education and this more open source research side of things, because of course it is a commercial invention. It is, going through licensing, mass production, but there's this side of it where we're also studying a totally new science and a phenomena that a lot of us have been studying through other means for a really long time. And this is just another vessel of really exploring that, understanding plasmoids, thunderstorms, these new ways to produce energy in a slightly more kind of refined way. So yeah, I love the work you're doing and helping to get this out there. And of course, we did do that demo in Sydney as well. I forgot about that. I did mention it again recently, actually, though, the Skeptics Society, which was good. We demonstrated the technology worked. We haven't heard back from them. There was $100,000 prize there, I believe. So I feel I hope that we do hear back from them. That'd be nice. That'd help move the project along in Australia, I think, in a really good way, because it would be put towards those educational and scientific purposes in Australia. So hopefully we hear back then. But what did you experience from that demo, right? We ran the machine, we showed the gas analysis results, we offered to do the fuel consumption test, go and source new fuel. It went well, right?
It went really well. I think we were as transparent as could be. Anything they wanted, we complied with, and we were offering more than what they were asking for. And I think we did as much as we could to be as transparent and as scientifically rigorous as we could have been. And I'd love to hear back from them, even if it's just, can you do another one for us? I'll drive down to Sydney. I'll do it again. But I think you're right as well. The previous point that you made, this is the beginning of a new understanding in science. I think as we start to learn about plasmoids and EVOs and all these very interesting things, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around as someone who's not very technical. It's going to change a lot in the world, and I think this has to be a community effort, because it's for all of mankind, and it clearly benefits everyone. It's the rising tide lifts all ships, and we've got a lot of problems in the world right now, and I think that it's not an entire panacea, but it does sort out a lot of our problems. Like I deal with things involving soil carbon and pollution in the environment, and how do we remedy these things which affect everyone. It's we like to say, oh, that this group over here is an emitter and this group over here is an emitter. Well, it's all one atmosphere, mate. It's all one ocean. It's all one planet, and we've all got to live beside each other. And so we've got to start cleaning this place up, really. And I think the soul of man has heard it, and we need to start fixing some of these problems that we have, because otherwise we're all going to be suffering. And same with all the animals and all the plants and all the trees and everything like that. And so I see it as a generally positive thing, is what we're doing, and it's going to clean the world up.
Yeah, agreed. The implications for the soil as well. This isn't something that has been widely spoken about yet, but Malcolm does mention it in his original lectures over on HowTube, and I've had many conversations with him about it. You guys may have as well, about both regenerating the oceans and regenerating the soil. And there's ways that we can do that. Of course, people are experimenting with electroculture and things like this now, and I think that's a reasonably imprecise science, at least how most people are doing it, because they're just kind of pumping DC in and going like, hey, sometimes it'll work if, if there's not enough energy in the soil, or if that particular plant, happens to match the frequency and what's coming in. But there's a more precise way to do it. And part of that is putting the Thunderstorm generator on tractors. And there's been discussion about this. And then using that exhaust itself for soil remediation, because ultimately it's just a way to get energy to the plant quicker. And we also know that the plasmoids can break things down. They're like digesters. So we can essentially make things more available more quickly to the plant by putting these on the tractor and then pumping the exhaust fumes, the oxygen and plasmoids coming out of the Thunderstorm generator into the soil. And you can find this in Malcolm's notes as well, talking about it. So, yeah, but going into your side of this, Saxon, because you've been a farmer, you're a cattle farmer, right? Is that the one?
Yeah, so I grew up on macadamia farms, so in orchard settings here in the Northern Rivers, and that's a very conventional, chemical-dependent industry, of which I was not very interested in growing up. Not the least of which I don't actually like macadamia, so that didn't really help, unless they're chocolate-coated. So I didn't have much interest in that, and then I moved into something called holistic management, developed by a man named Alan Savory, who really is the sort of the progenitor of all of these holistic grazing systems or regenerative grazing systems. So after getting interested in that a number of years ago, I decided to apprentice myself to a number of cattlemen and learn the industry from the ground up. Usually it's an inherited industry. Rarely do people actually enter voluntarily, and most people, when they grow up, they leave the industry. But I found it very interesting with anti-desertification, de-desertification, and environmental regeneration. So that's what I do at the moment. I manage a farm up here in the Northern Rivers. We do regenerative grazing, specifically holistic planned grazing, and so that's what I do. So that was all about increasing soil carbon, increasing biodiversity of the pasture species, increasing the energy flow into the environment, which is the amount of photosynthetic power that you can get from your leaves, and just helping farmers make better decisions ultimately, and how we can actually, as farmers, increase our environment and its health rather than mine it and decrease it like what a lot of commercial agriculture does. So, we don't use fertilizers, we don't have to seed. We really, to really make it simple, we move our cattle as the way that they usually were moved. So there's something to it. And I just thought, well, this actually aligns very closely with what I'm doing. So I thought that there's probably a bit of overlap, and I'm delighted to find out that there is. So I'm looking forward to some more stuff to do with the putting of the plasmoids into the soil. I didn't know too much about that, but I hope there'll be something like that in the future. I think that would be a marvelous application. So, but yeah, ultimately, I think this has a lot of positive things for agriculture. I mean, agriculture is energy dependent, like a lot of other industries, and energy is a really big thing on the bottom line for a lot of farmers. And if you put one on your tractor and suddenly you're paying 50% less, or if you put it into your buggy or into your ute or anything like that, and you're paying less for energy, and then there's something to be said for that. That'll definitely help out a lot of primary producers in this nation and all around the world, really. Farmers have a bit of a struggle all around the world, and especially if you get into places not so fortunate as Australia, they're obviously running off a lot of generators. Like when I was doing farming over in Africa, I was living in Zimbabwe for a bit. There's a lot of hard-going people that are all running off generators and really old bits of machinery that could really benefit from a retrofit, and not just to mention the savings, but the human health impact. I mean, there's a lot of people who run off these generators constantly, and that is, that's a lot of carbon monoxide breathing in. So there's also human health to consider as well. So I think it's a win-win for everyone on the land. It's a win-win for farmers, and there's definitely a lot of good it can bring. Yeah,
that's a really important point, and I like that you brought up. Was it Africa or South Africa that you said you were?
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, that you were farming over there, because that was the reality certainly in India as well. The factory where we were going to, that was very flash and modern, but all around it, surrounded by agricultural communities. And you're right, it's all just run on generators, and there is a lot of pollution in the air. And a lot of people just consider this on, their clean, Tesla filled city, with the coal power plants and the production going on somewhere else. But there are places that are really being poisoned and could really seriously benefit from this technology. And not only that, but the increase or the decrease in fuel consumption, the increase in engine efficiency as well. Because again, when we were in India, it was, you'd go buy some fuel and it was like a Pepsi bottle, like filled up with fuel with a cap on, and it wasn't like ridiculously expensive, but it clearly wasn't that available because they have so many generators running. It could really do some good for the world. So I'm glad that you see that as well, and certainly for farmers and rural communities in particular. All right. Well, is there anything further that you guys would like to share on the build or the experience or the future of it, the implications, anything else before we finish up?
Look, if somebody's out thinking of building one out there, don't be scared. Have a go. It's not impossible. Yes, I've got a lot of experience, but if you can do a little bit of TIG welding, have a go. Don't be scared.
Yep, good advice.
Yep, and I think that's it. I reckon if you want to give it a go, give it a go. It's fun. And, you might not know everything, but, your mate might. You might have to get a few people together that that have different skills, and then you can put together your own retrofit. Or you could just get one of the kit sets and then, retrofit a generator. Have fun with it, because it's, you learn a lot by doing. So, and, it's that's the way to do it.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming on to chat today, and for all your hard work to spread the word out there about this technology, and in successfully replicating it yourself and demoing it to others.
You're welcome. We'll keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll catch up again. Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Saxon and Gary. Great guys, and I'm sure I will be catching up with them again in the future. There's so much happening in Australia now, and there's a lot of people involved taking this effort on the education, scientific and commercial side to the next level. So stay tuned for more on that soon. I'll be catching up again with Acris Industries again within the next week or two. So keep an eye out for those videos, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to catch all of the news. It's not stopping now. Thank you for watching. I'm Jordan Collin, a student of Malcolm Bendall, and this is Alchemical Science. I'll see you next time.